Alright folks, I decided to make a video showing off some of my books in my private library. So, here we go. Right here we have, it's kind of difficult to do this using my webcam, but right here I've got Between Two Worlds, which is the diary of Winifred Coombe Tennant, and she was one of the mediums involved in the cross correspondences, and she was also the first woman to be appointed as a delegate to the League of Nations, I believe, the first British woman. She was very influential in British politics, and I also believe she was involved in art. Here I have Paranthropology, Volume 4, Number 1A. That's got my article in it. And also behind that I've got my article, or the copy of the Journal for Spiritual and Consciousness Studies, Volume 36, Number 3, which has my article in it. I just submitted a new article recently. I've got Buckland's Book of Spirit Communications. This is, I guess that shows some of my spiritualist interests. Anyways, try and have a good balance here. I've got Solitary Seance, Wiser Field Guide to Ghosts, and all these are Buckland books. Try to organize them somewhat. This is Trickster and the Paranormal by George Hansen, The Immortalization Commission by John Gray, and that's a philosophical take on different approaches that people have made toward trying to make themselves immortal or to find evidence for immortality, and Gray kind of questions that in the book. It's actually very brilliant. Have Ghost Hunters by Deborah Blum, Varieties of Scientific Experience by Carl Sagan, really brilliant book. I've got The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. Let me go back here a bit. I've got The Future and Beyond by Saltmarsh, and that's a book on his, I guess, precognition. It's basically two books in one. One was a book he wrote on precognition, and the other was a evaluation of the cross correspondences. This one is something very dear to me, actually. This was a $75 book. It's a first edition of The Life of Richard Hodgson by Alex Bard, or Baird, or however you say his name. But it's basically Hodgson's biography, and Richard Hodgson is one of the psychical researchers I admire the most. He's one of the original psychical researchers, alongside Myers, that I really hold in very high esteem. Also hold William James in high esteem. Bring this back over here. This is kind of weird. Okay, I've got Navigating the Out-of-Body Experience, Graham Nichols. Is There an Afterlife by David Fontana. The Parapsychology Revolution, Robert M. Scotch, and Logan Yanovayak. Also, here's another one right here, Spectres of the Self by Corsten. Very good book. Haven't actually read all of it, but I enjoyed what I did read. This is a very brilliant book right here. It's the biography written by Trevor Hamilton on Frederick Myers. And Myers is probably the, I guess, genius of psychical research, if there was one. Beside that, actually, damn it. Okay, beside that, I have another one of Hamilton's books, which Tell My Mother I'm Not Dead. That's a little collection of things he did when it was interesting. It was a record of his own mediumistic, I guess, him delving into the world of mediums and psychics and whatnot. But because his son died. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what he writes because he's good at it. I'm looking forward to another book he's coming out on he's writing about the cross correspondences next, and I want to get his take on that. Up here I have several copies of different volumes of the Journal for the Society, or the Journal of the Society for Psychical Research. Here I've got In Search of the Dead by Iverson. Here I've got Stella Sea by James Turner, which is a has different. It pretty much has all the price articles and publications that are at least public on Stella C, the physical medium from the 1920s, who Price studied. I've got My Life in Two Worlds by Gladys Osborne Leonard, one of the most famous trance mediums of all time. I've got all three of Chris Carter's books, Science and Psychic Phenomena, Science and the Near-Death Experience, and Science and the Afterlife Experience. All are pretty decent books. Carter isn't necessarily the greatest philosopher, but he does summarize the cases in very adequate depth, and there were some new cases that he wrote about in his books that I wasn't even aware of. Here's First Sight by James Carpenter, which is a book published in Carpenter's theory on how psychic phenomena would work, and it's a nice model. This is a good book, a great book right here, The Works of William James, Essays in Psychical Research. Brilliant one. Basically, it's a collection of all of William James's published material on psychical research. Here is the New Encyclopedia of Stage Hypnotism by Orman McGill, The Eager Dead by Archie Roy, and I had wanted to get this book for so long. It took a very long time to get it. I had to order it from the Scottish Society for Psychical Research after Professor Roy passed, and it was very good. It was a great read. Yeah. This is the Borley Rectory Companion, which is self-explanatory for anyone who knows anything about the Borley Rectory haunting. The Harry Price haunting. Here's 50 Years of Psychical Research by Harry Price. The Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Spirits by Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Here is Exploring Psychology. It's a textbook. Down here I've got The Ghosts of Cape May. Right there. These are books by my friend Craig McManus. And also another book in the corner over here, 400 Years of the Ghosts of Cape May. It's a tabletop book. Here we've got some Human Oddities by Eric Dingwall. Researchers into the Phenomena of Modern Spiritualism by Sir William Crookes. And I've got a shitload of books on PDF too, so this isn't even the extent of my library, and not even the extent of my physical library. I've got the Psychic Energy Codex, which is something by Michelle Bellinger. Deception and Self-Deception by Wiseman, a brilliant book. Got Deathbed Visions by Sir William Barrett, a classic. Weird Hauntings, which is more of a, I guess, just a fun read. The Psychic Life of Abraham Lincoln. I haven't read that one yet, but I'm looking forward to it when I can get to it. Here's a brilliant book by a very famous, wonderful conjurer. The person that probably got me most interested in mentalism, Mr. Darren Brown, Tricks of the Mind. I've got some other books of his on PDF, or I guess in PDF format. Here I've got a book by Carrington, Your Psychic Powers and How to Develop Them. It's a classic. Don't know how much of it is woo, but anyways, got Impromptu Mentalism by James Jones. Decent book. Exploring the Sixth Sense, James Jones. It's not the real Sixth Sense, it's just mentalism and whatnot. This is a book on clairvoyance by Lynn Willoughby. This right here is a very good book, and it's unique. A friend of mine wrote it, Cal Cooper. It's called Telephone Calls from the Dead. I might as well hold it out. It is I don't want to say a rehash, but it's an updated, I guess it could be viewed as an expansion of the early work by Rogo and Bayliss called Phone Calls from the Dead. But great book. Cal did a wonderful job writing it. He signed my copy, actually. This is another decent book. It's really one-sided, but it does present the psychology behind the paranormal very effectively. It's called Paranormality: Why We See What Isn't There, which our Professor Richard Wiseman wrote it. Personally, I prefer his older works like Deception and Self-Deception and Magic and Theory, which is something he wrote with Lamont. Here I've got Tricks to Pick Up Chicks, fun little magic book, Spirit of Dr. Bendeloff, which is a write-up of some very old seances that happened in the 30s. Got Entangled Minds by Radin, Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, Mysterious Minds, which is a collection of different articles and writings by people like Stanley Krippner, Caroline Watt, Henry Irwin, and I think James Alcock actually has something in here, if I'm not mistaken. I might be. I don't want to look through it right now. Here I've got the pivotal book by Myers. This is a very, I guess, the summarized version, if you want to call it that, but typically the book is much longer. This is Human Personality and its Survival of Bodily Death. The actual book is much longer, and this was published after Myers died. He probably would have never picked that title, and if they chose a different title, it probably would have given his theories a much wider readership than he actually got, and yet his ideas were still extremely influential. This is The First Psychic by Peter Lamont. It's a biography on Daniel Douglas Hume. Limits of Influence by Stephen Browdy. Mortal Remains by Browdy. The Airmen Who Would Not Die. Something I haven't read yet, but I'm familiar with the case. It's about Eileen Garrett and the R101 disaster and possibly some other stuff. This is The Mediumship of Miss Leonard. I already referenced that earlier when I was talking about My Life in Two Worlds by Leonard. This is Electronic Projects from the Next Dimension. Unfortunately, I'm not very educated on how to read schematics and or at least electronic schematics, but I might have to educate myself on that. That could be interesting. This is a great book. If This Be Magic, Forgotten Power of Hypnotism by Guy Lyon Playfair. The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. Very, very, very influential book. Or actually, series of lectures, really. Or lectures. Basic Writings of Nietzsche, and this is an amazing book. A friend of mine recommended this to me, and I don't regret it. Great book on philosophy. This is a really good book. One of the first books I ever read on fraudulent seance tricks. Revelations of a Spirit Medium. It was edited and published by Dingwall and Price back in the 1920s. This is Mediumship Made Simple. Remember, I'm a skeptic, but I do have an interest in these things. And I think it's good to be grounded on both sides of the debate. Here's Investigating the Paranormal by Tony Cornell. Great book, great researcher. Here's Poltergeist by Gall and Cornell. Very pivotal book on that subject. Poltergeist by Sacheverell Sitwell, and this is something I haven't read yet. This is an introduction to parapsychology, the key textbook. It's written by Harvey J. Irwin and Caroline Watt in this particular edition. Get it if you're interested in parapsychology. It is I'd say it's the key book if you're interested in the academic study of these types of odd phenomena. The Spirit Book by Raymond Buckland. I guess that one's out of place, but yeah, there it is. I've also got The Will to Believe by William James. Got a couple of books out of place, but it's a great book. Try and run through these a little faster. I've got Unseen World. This over here, I believe, is a collection of Edgar Allan Poe poems. Opening to the Other Side. Craig Hamilton Parker and his wife, or actually just Craig Hamilton Parker. But it's a book on developing psychic ability and mediumship and whatnot. Interesting stuff. I did some experiments back in the day, just out of interest and legitimate seeking. This is another book on communicating with spirits. Again, I'm very interested in that from a well, actually from an experiential point of view, and I guess that incorporates a lot of different things. But basically, a lot of these books I drew ideas from in my own experiments. So I would put people into trances and whatnot and try and uh, develop something to study, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if I've gotten any closer to figuring out if it's spirits or not, but it's been an interesting road, and I look forward to a much longer one ahead of me. I look forward to a lot of research, and I look forward to actually doing something pretty significant in this field. Okay, ghost hunting, book on that. Ghost, spirits, and hauntings, collection of different articles again. Here's a good one: Scientific Paranormal Investigation by Benjamin Radford, and it's a collection of articles. I think Ray Hyman's in there and a couple other people. Really notable skeptics. Randy's Prize by Robert McLuhan. That's a pretty good book. A lot of people are turned off by the name because it says what skeptics say about the paranormal, why they're wrong, and why it matters. But he actually did a very good job of getting his point across, and I don't necessarily agree with him on every single point, but I think he did a good job. One White Crow, haven't read this one yet, George McMullen. So You Want to Be a Medium, Van Eyden, The Possessed. This is an interesting book on the Watseka Wonder. Troy Taylor wrote this. Very interesting case, very strong case in favor of supposed spirit possession. The spirit of Mary Roth allegedly possessed Lawrence E. Venom for a couple of months back in the 1800s. Very interesting story. Roger Clark, A Natural History of Ghosts. I actually haven't read this one yet, which is surprising because I got my hands on it pretty quickly. I've heard this is really good. I skimmed through the pages. I've just got so much damn stuff to read through and so much schoolwork and all kinds of other stuff. I just don't have time to read as much as I'd like. History of Ghosts, Dan Aykroyd and his father, or Peter Aykroyd, wrote it, but Dan did the foreword. Paranormal Technology by David M. Roundtree. Here's one on the evaluation of verbal material in parapsychology. This is by Pratt, and it's a study of Eileen Garrett and whatnot under. Well, actually, it was. I guess it came together, but it was a study of Eileen Garrett. It was basically a way of elaborating on how to actually test mediums under optimum conditions. I believe the Wiseman study with O'Keefe was based on this in part. But Eileen Garrett actually got very interesting results, or she produced very interesting results. Adventures in the Supernormal, which was Garrett's not autobiography, but I guess memoirs. Maybe it was her first autobiography. Many Voices, the autobiography of a medium, Eileen Garrett. Telepathy by Eileen Garrett. The Image of an Oracle by Progoff, which is on Garrett. Eileen Garrett and the World Beyond the Senses by Angoff. Garrett was a fascinating and strong-willed woman. I have a lot of respect for her. Intuitive Studies by Gordon Smith. Lovely little chap right there. Yeah. See, I'm Gordon Smith and I talk to the dead. Alright. Talking to the Other Side. I don't know, I'm not going to be able to get that damn Scottish accent out of my mouth. Whatever. Talking to the Other Side by Todd J. Leonard, PhD. New Science of the Paranormal, LeSean, Electronic Voices, Annabella Cardoso. That's on the alleged phenomena of DRV, direct radio voice, where spirit voices supposedly come through people's radios. Select individuals, anyways. Resurrecting Lenora Piper. This was a book written by Michael Tim. I've had a lot of conversations with that guy. Very, very pro-survival. He doesn't discuss many of the criticisms leveled against Piper, but he does summarize the case very well, and I think he does a good job in doing what he said he was going to do. He doesn't really address the criticisms that are often leveled against Piper, but he should have, because those criticisms can be easily addressed, actually. At least some of them. The studies done by Hall and Tanner, for example, were very poorly conducted, and a lot of people refer to them as being some huge debunking exercise with the Piper case, but the Hodgson studies that went on for years were much, much better. In fact, Hall and Tanner, actually Hall and Tanner, they actually wrote in Studies in Spiritism that they weren't even interested in test questions, so they weren't even interested in the idea of whether or not Piper could talk to the dead. And James Hislop actually wrote, I believe, 99. He wrote up a paper detailing 99 errors in Hall and Tanner's report. They did really present things in a very biased way, and if that's the only thing you've read on the Piper stuff, you're bound to be impressed by what they wrote. But if it's not, if you've read the actual material, their study's not very impressive. But, oh well. Articulate Dead by Tim, and keep in mind I don't believe in survival at all. In fact, in some ways I'm repulsed by the idea. Kind of 50-50 in that respect. But anyways, Articulate Dead by Michael Tim, another book. Here's Nocturnal Witchcraft and Gothic Grimoire by Konstantinos, reflecting some earlier occultist-based interests, or occultism-based interests. This is The Unknown, Is It Nearer by Dr. Eric Dingwall and John Langdon Davies. I've not read this. I need to. It's very good from what I've heard. Got some books on George Anderson, that damn New Jersey, actually Long Island, the first Long Island medium without the long talon fingernails. There's very few mediums that I've actually been impressed with. He might be one of them. I mean, you can't really tell if a medium is genuine or not unless they actually subject themselves to tests, and some of them have. I guess the strength of the evidence in favor of their purported abilities depends on how well conducted the tests were and how extensive they were. Anyways, Witch's Book of the Dead by Christian Day, Life After Life by Raymond Moody, the guy that came up with the near-death experience phrase. Paranormal Powers, Handbook of them by Brian Houghton, whatever. I've read that. That's a pretty decent one. It presents a very balanced conception of everything. Speak with the Dead by Konstantinos. Interesting book. This is a really crappy book, honestly, I thought, but very well, that's because it's so believer friendly. Seance 101 by Medium, Elaine M. Kosmiskas. Guided by Spirit. Haven't read this one, I want to. Guided by Spirit, A Journey into the Mind of Medium, Charles E. Emmons and Penelope Emmons. I heard that was actually really good. Here's a great one. A Strange Case of Rudy Snyder by Anita Gregory. Very, very good summary of the Snyder case. I don't agree with all her conclusions for a number of reasons, but she did write a very damn good book. Here's Mind and Cosmos by Thomas Nagel, Why the Materialist Neo-Darwinian Conception of Nature is Almost Certainly False. This book sparked a lot of controversy and also a lot of very bad reviews. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Nagel didn't elaborate on a lot of his ideas, like suggesting that a teleological conception of how nature works is called for. He didn't really support his position in a good way, but the question arises how one would do that. Anyways, Guidelines for Testing Psychic Claimants by Morris and Wiseman. Amazing book for anyone interested in studying psychic phenomena or claimed psychic phenomena. Lectures on Psychical Research by C.D. Broad, my bad. Yeah, I always pronounce his name wrong. Dark Intrusions. And Broad was a philosopher, and a very, very prominent philosopher, actually. Dark Intrusions, an investigation into the paranormal nature of sleep paralysis. Very believer-based book, but it looked interesting. I haven't read it yet. Haunting of America, Salem Witch Trials to Harry Houdini, William J. Burns and Joel Martin. That's pretty good. Debating Psychic Experience. This is an amazing book. It has a collection of different articles and responses from both proponents in parapsychology to the skeptics. Back and forth discourse. It has contributions from Chris French, Ray Hyman, James Alcock, Dean Radin, Chris Carter, and a couple other people. Very good book. Really, really elaborates on the current state, or at least the state a few years ago, of the skeptic-believer debate. Remember Me, a lively tour of the new American way of death. And then I've got The Case for Reincarnation by Joe Fisher. Down here, I've got part of my physical collection of conjuring books, and they're down here, actually. Okay. Into the Unknown. That's not has nothing to do with magic. Here's some guitar, or a guitar book. My yearbook. Magic. Mark Wilson's Complete Course. Close-up Magic Secrets. Dunninger's Complete Encyclopedia of Magic. Brilliant book for those of you who don't know who Dunninger was. I've got Mental Magic Routine using dry erase boards. James Bond Cold Reading. Good book. Really simplifies the use of stock lines and whatnot. I'm not going to give away too many little tidbits of information to you people who know nothing of magic. Banachek's Psychokinetic Time, and I believe I've got Psychokinetic Touches in there as well. Mind, Myth, and Magic by T.A. Waters. Theater of the Mind, Barry Richardson, Act 2. Theater of the Mind by Barry Richardson. Curtain Call, Barry Richardson. These are great books for the mentalist, or anyone aspiring to learn how to perform mentalism with some degree of proficiency. Complete Idiot's Guide to Street Magic, Verbal Magic. Magic in Theory, I referenced this earlier. Peter Lamont and Richard Wiseman. Brilliant book. Won't teach you how to necessarily do conjuring, but it'll teach you some of the theory behind why magic is so deceptive. Ted Leslie's Paramiracles. Got some other books. Expert Card Technique. Practical Mental Magic by Anneman. This is considered one of the standard texts in addition to Corinda's 13 Steps to Mentalism. I've got Death and Consciousness by David H. Lund. I've got Early Greek Science, Thales to Aristotle by somebody named Lloyd. Let's see, G.E.R. Lloyd. Then I've got Greek Science after Aristotle. Battle Cry of Freedom. Handbook of Unusual Natural Phenomena, How We Die, The Story of English, The Ascent of Man by J. Bronowski. A couple other things like Criminalistics, Health. Some of those are textbooks from college. Those are basically some of the things I got. Over here I've got some books that I'm rereading. Reunions by Raymond Moody. Visionary Encounters with Departed Loved Ones. This is a brilliant book right here. Extraordinary Beliefs, a Historical Approach to a Psychological Problem by Peter Lamont. In my mind, this might be his best book, and that's a tough one because I really liked his D.D. Hume book. In fact, they're probably on par. I like them both. Right here, got some more mentalism books. Naked Mentalism, Stripped Method by John Thompson. Really good book. Naked Mentalism 2, Secrets of the Primes. Can't really show other people's. Anyways, it's late. It's like 4 in the morning, and I don't know why I'm doing this. Naked Mentalism 3, researched and written by John Thompson. Great books for anyone interested in magic. And again, this is only a very small portion of my library. Some of the books I just can't fit on the shelf, and some of them are PDFs on my computer, so I got an online library as well. There's 13 Steps to Mentalism by Corinda. I constantly read and reread this book. It's the key book for mentalism, in my opinion, if you want to start off. Some of the methods are outdated, but this is the book if you want to develop any knowledge of mentalism and allied conjuring arts. Right. We got some other stuff. Ghost Grimoire, another mentalism work. Phantom by Brandon Queen. Brilliant fucking book on mentalism, I thought. Between the Lines, which is a method. Can't tell you about it. You just have to buy it. I'll give you a hint. It's a neat little trick where you hand the spectator a piece of paper at the beginning of your performance, and you let them go on a mental journey, and they describe different things they see, different scenes that they see, and at the end of the effect, once they've described everything, they open the paper, and as they read it, it's exactly what they were describing to you. Very, very neat effect. Here is Carnage by Paul Carnazzo. Neat little collection of routines here. I'm not going to go in any depth with most of these, but I went through a great portion of my library. Everything on that bookshelf I went through. It took me 30 minutes. Probably didn't stick around for this, but anyways, if you did, you have no life. See, I have an excuse. I'm suffering from insomnia, so I didn't have anything better to do. Good night, folks.